Hi everyone, welcome to the Intelligence, Analytics and Action webcast. My name is Liz McCreesh. I'm a Principal Consultant here at Thorogood, and I also head up our Analytics practice. And today I'll be taking you through this webcast. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Thorogood, we're a specialist consultancy with over 30 years of experience in delivering business intelligence and analytics solutions to leading global enterprise organizations. In order to deliver those solutions, we work with a wide range of tools and technologies and are experts in producing hybrid solutions that deliver a best-of-breed approach. In terms of what I'm going to cover today, first I'll touch upon how the analysis that we perform has changed over time. Then I'll show you an example of guided analytics. Then we'll explore how having the required data and structures in place enables much more ad hoc analysis, and then leading into how we can leverage that data to automate insights. If you think about how our interactions with data have evolved over time, at first, the ability to extract the data we wanted to analyze out of a database into an end-user tool, such as Access or Excel, was a big step forward. Next, we introduced the concept of slicing and dicing using pivot tables or OLAP tools that allowed us to create splits of the data by key attributes for further interrogation. And then we can start adding conditional formatting to help us understand the patterns in our data better. And then with the introduction of tools such as Tableau, Click, and Power BI, to create much more informative visuals to answer specific business questions. We can now combine multiple visuals together on a dashboard to give us a focused view of our data with interactivity. Underpinning this will be a consolidated set of data that has been designed to answer the business questions and facilitate ad hoc analysis. That data can either be held in a data mart, a data warehouse, or a data lake, could be on the cloud or in-premise. And by using guided analytics, we can drill to a preset of predetermined visualizations to help investigate any of the numbers that are highlighted. So let's see a demonstration of how guided analytics can lead us to intelligent or automated analytics. So here I am, just for the purposes of example, I'm using the Power BI desktop tool. And here I have an example of a dashboard with some guided analytics. So we have some of our KPIs split by some of our key business drivers. And there's also interactivity within these charts. So if I select body wash on this chart, you'll notice that it filters all of the other numbers. If I want to look at my other discounters and drill into that in a bit more detail, I can turn on my drill feature and select my other discounts, and I can see all of the pharmacies that make up that particular discounter, and I can see that most of that growth has been driven by the extra. And I can quite quickly drill back up again to my higher level. You might notice here we've got a KPI here in red that's showing us that 8 customers have decreased sales from last month by 25%. So this is a metric that I use quite a lot. So I've asked my analysts to include this on my front level dashboard so I get very early visibility of that KPI. And you'll see I've got a drill option available here. If I click on that, I've got a customized drill down version where I've highlighted those particular 8 customers, and I can see a simple trend chart and some splits by my sector and brand family. If I want to understand what the future looks like, I can enable my visualization pane, select my trend chart, go to my analytics pane, and introduce a forecast. What this does is it will generate a forecast for each of my customers, and I can interact with them at the top level or select a particular customer I'm interested in. If I select discount cost, we can see that's pretty much flatline, so I'm not really going to worry too much about that. I might talk to that account manager and see what they know, why that's gone down so much, and if it's worth trying to go back in there again. If I look at Exborn, actually, I think overall that's looking fine. There has been a bit of a dip, but overall I think that looks okay. But if I select discount cost, which is one that I'm responsible for, we can see that really has gone down. If I do deliver, and if I want to understand what's caused this drop between these 2 data points, I can right-click, select Analyze, Explain the difference, and what the computer will do is it'll look at the change between those 2 months, look at some of the key attributes that I've used for my reporting, and try to explain that difference for me. So the first thing it's done, it's picked out size, and it's saying that the 250 size is caused the majority of the decrease. And you can see here, it's given me a waterfall chart by default, but it has got some out-of-the-box views that I can use to try to see if any of these visualizations will help me explain that difference any better. I think the waterfall chart is actually quite a good one, so I'll keep that and I'll scroll further down to see what else it's telling me. Well, I can see we've got some different attributes it's picked out, and because it is a computer doing this, it doesn't necessarily pick out the most sensible or logical attributes. It's just purely looking through the data and trying to find some messaging here. And again, it's reiterating the small size is where it saw the most difference, which is the same as the chart we saw earlier. But we can actually, the only area we've seen an increase here is our deodorants. So we might want to look at our deodorant sprays and see where we're seeing that gain over which areas. But it's very quickly given me some insights, and I might want to decide that actually there's a big decrease in this body wash sector. So that might be one I'm very interested in. So what I might then do is just add that to my chart, and I might do further analysis on that to do some drill downs to understand a bit more about it. So this is an example where we're using guided analytics to find a KPI that I'm very interested in, drilling to see some detail to understand a bit more in depth about it, and then letting the machine propose some potential drivers for the variance that I can then use my business knowledge to leverage and investigate further. So apart from having the guided analytics set up in our dashboards, there may be some focus areas you want to look at where the existing dashboards don't actually help to answer my questions, but I can still leverage the power of the underlying data model to perform some ad hoc analysis. One of the things I'm interested in understanding is how my measures are interacting with each other. And to help me with that, I've created a correlation plot. And we've actually done this using R. So for those who are of the more technical bent, you can see here we've got a little bit of R code, which is creating our correlation plot based on the data in my model. And what this is showing me is it's the relationship between my key measures. A dark blue circle means there's a strong positive correlation, and a dark red circle means there's a strong negative correlation. And I can run this for each of my channels, or I can run it for my overall business. So if I'm interested in the hypermarkets, and you can see that the business building promo level has decreased and come paler, so it's not having as much of an impact on my hypermarkets. If I select back to the all level again, I can see that regardless of which channel I'm selecting, my turnover and sellout value are always a very strong correlation, which isn't that surprising. But I just want to check and look into that in a bit more detail. So what I'm going to do here is create some new ad hoc. And there's a feature called natural query language that a number of tools have. And what this is, it enables you to start asking questions of your data, but just by typing in words, English words, and then seeing the computer will interpret that and try to build and give you your best visual and the numbers you're looking for. So as I said, I'm interested in looking at turnover. And the first thing it does is just say, is this the right one, which is yes. And it's given me a total number. But that's actually not what I'm interested in. I want to do a bit more analysis. So I'm going to start again and say I want to see turnover by sell out value. And that's given me some lines which isn't very interesting. So I want to see it as a scatter plot. And one big circle doesn't really help me, and I'm interested in it by customer. So just by typing in the words, I've got a fairly basic scatter plot, but the computer has taken my texting, worked out what that should be, looked at my data model, and then come up with a visualization that meets my needs. But I always want to tweak things. I'm just going to change that. I'm going to fill in my data points. I'm going to change my formatting. So I know I've got a customer cluster that I think that would be a useful thing to start bringing out my color coding. So I'm going to drag that onto my legend. So now I've got a field for which of my clusters are giving me the expected performance. So I can actually start filtering here by selecting a particular cluster, but it's still quite difficult to see exactly what the pattern is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new filter using my channel cluster. and I'm going to change that to be a filter icon. Just going to make that one row so it looks a little bit more readable. And in fact, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to take my scatter plot and I'm going to add in a trend line. It just helps to visualize it. Okay, so I think that's a bit more workable. So what I can do now is I can actually start to filter and look at my different channels. So hypermarket are pretty much along the trend, e-commerce as well. But if I select convenience, we can actually see that there's a few data points here that are either very far below or above. And if I look at this one, I can hover over, I can see that's Exborn. If I look here, I can see Williams. So actually, from looking at this, I think we might be giving them too many discounts. They're earning too much margin compared to the other customers in this particular segment. So what I can do is I can right-click and drill through to one of my linked reports based on customer. And what that then does is gives me an indication of the different kinds of trade terms that we've been giving them, what the discounts are. And it may well be that I can then go and talk to that account manager and say, actually, I think we're being a little bit generous here. We might want to actually charge them a little bit more for some of the services that we're offering, and talk that through in a bit more detail. So that was just for looking at one particular combination. So we were looking at our turnover versus sellout value by customer. So it didn't take very long, but if we had to do that for every possible combination of measure we've got, by customer, by product, by time, by geography, that's actually going to be quite a lot of work to do. But if we can identify certain correlations and relationships that we're keen to understand where the outliers are, then what we can do is actually set that up in the background and get the computer to actually do that. And then once we've set up those business rules, every time we refresh the data, we can let the computer recalculate those, flag up those of interest that we see any anomalies, and actually surface that in our dashboard. So to that end, I've created a new version of my performance dashboard where I've let the computer, when we refresh the data, it's run through, find any of these anomalies that I've highlighted to it using business logic. And what it's done then is it's surfaced them on my dashboard so I can have a look and see which of those are particularly important for me, and then I can link through and do some further analysis. So rather than me having to go and search and hunt down those kind of interesting outliers and anomalies, the computer's done the hard work for me, and then all I need to do is just pick the ones that are of most value to me. One other thing, you can also use technology to actually start to give you an alert when an anomaly has been detected, so that if the data is getting loaded overnight, you can come in the morning and you'll have in your email and your inbox any of the areas that you particularly need to go and look at. So hopefully this shows you how some of the automated analytics can save your manager's time. And it also means you can be expected to explore to a depth that the human analyst could not routinely contemplate. But once automated, the frequency with which the computer can look at those logics, either in terms of frequency or lower levels of granularity, opens up lots of new possibilities. And it means you can handle more data at a greater frequency. So far, all of the automated insights we've been doing have been based either on business logic that I've seen or interesting questions that I've selected. But I am not all-knowing, so there may be parts of that data that I haven't even considered. And by letting the machine just cast an eye across the data, it may find insights that I haven't seen. To illustrate, I'm going to just move to Power BI Service. I was using Power BI Desktop previously, but each tool has its own capabilities. I'm just using this one for illustration. Power BI Service has got a home page. You can see the things I frequently use. I can go to my workspace. If I've got some dashboards set up, I can look at the dashboards where I've pinned the KPIs and indicators I'm most keen on. And from each of these, I can link to an underlying report. And each of those reports is then interactive, but underpinning that will be a set of data. And that's what I'm interested in looking at the moment. So if I go to my datasets, you can see I've got quite a few set up in here already, but the one I'm interested in today is my Intelligent Analytics in Action. It's a bit of a mouthful. If I click on More Options, you can see one of the options here is View Insights. I've already run it on this data set just for time, and what it does is it goes through a subset of the data, looking at the attributes that you found and trying to look at any issues or any patterns to your data. And what it does is it runs a number of analyses on looking for distribution patterns, the change points in the time series, like we showed earlier with that to explain the difference, correlations, similar to what we've seen in OR, major factors, so if most of your data is falling into one bucket, so looking at the distributions in that, overall trends, if there's any seasonality to your data, and again, any outliers based on time series. And then what it does is tries to surface the most standing out ones to you for further investigation. Again, it is a computer, it doesn't know your business, it just takes any splits of the data. But what you can do is then hide any relevant columns or things where previously we saw we had the size in kilograms and then a size kind of textual description. You might want to hide one and only keep one because otherwise it's going to find the same insight. But we can have a look at what it's found. Our direct-to-customer has much more opportunity value. Well, actually, I know that because most of my sales is direct-to-customer, so that's not particularly insightful for me because I already know that. If I scan down to see if anything else is of interest, it's telling me the same thing again with a different picture. But yes, I do know route to market is good. Now this one's interesting. So normally we sell to 10 channels, and that's what I would expect to do. But it's found an outlier in terms of the trade profit, where in January either we've missed some data, we're not showing the true picture, or something's happened in that particular month. So that's something I hadn't spotted in my analysis previously. So that's something I'd want to go back and start looking into to see if I'm missing data or what happened with that particular month. So if I want to, I can then pin that chart, and then next month when the data comes in and refresh, just to make sure it's something I keep an eye on and make sure it doesn't happen again. Again, gross sales, yes, shower treatments are one of my biggest earners. But something here from finance, there's something about operational payments where OXA is standing out. So I might want to, it's not really of interest to me, but I might get some of my finance guys to have a look at that and just make sure there's nothing strange going on there. And again, we've seen a few outliers, a few large items. And we're seeing here this metric here, brand marketing expense as a percentage of GP. First thing I notice actually is a negative value because it's an expense, but actually what I want to see on this metric would be a positive. So I'll go back to my data analysts, get them to change the signage of that metric, because what it's actually saying is we're actually spending a lot more expense brand marketing for this particular brand variant than we are from any of the other products. So I want to talk to that brand manager and just see what on earth they're doing with their marketing spend. Again, that's something I can pin to save for later. If I have my dashboard set up, so I'll just go back to my workspace, and I have a metric here set up. One of the interesting things I can do is create an alert. So if I've got a KPI that I'm interested in monitoring, I can add an alert in here. So if it goes above a certain condition, I can get notified just either by putting a little icon in my visual or by actually getting an email sent to me, so I can choose to enable or disable that. It will check for that alert every time a new set of data is loaded. So if you are loading data very frequently, but you don't want to be constantly them pinging you saying, oh look, you've got a problem here, you can say you don't want to be notified any more than once an hour or once a day. And if you only refresh your data once a month, you would only get the alert once a month. So I think that's quite a handy little tool as well. Close that, because I don't want to be alerted every time that number changes. Just to summarize, I would say it's not an either-or choice in terms of you either choose to go for guided analytics, automated analytics, or just fixed reporting. The best thing you can do is leverage the data preparation that's gone into building your dashboards and guided analytics and augment them with automated analytics. I'd say let the machines do what they're good at and free up your analysts for tasks that require the business knowledge. If you find an insight that can be applied across a wider or deeper set of data and more frequently, call that out, get that built into your back-end data processing, and then get that with visibility onto your dashboards. I think one of the things that we're seeing, a lot of the tools are really starting to embrace this and starting to incorporate it into their roadmaps for future developments. Keep your eye open, whatever tools you're using, on what's coming down the line. I know tools like Data Robots enable automated model building, and similar capability will be in Preview and Power BI this year. And most of the front-end tools are incorporating some of these capabilities to lesser or more degrees. And thank you for your time today. I hope this was useful. If you've got any questions, please do feel free to get in touch, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.